Hey guys, today in class we started talking about Millennium Development Goal 3, and actually we're probably just going to talk about it today. I'm not sure if it'll carry into tomorrow or not, because we have to start moving pretty quickly. The third Millennium Development Goal says, or I should say is, to promote gender equality and empower women. So I love that. But when you look at the target says to, let me pull my highlighter up for us, to eliminate gender disparity in primary and secondary education, preferably by 2005 and in all levels of education no later than 2015. That's noble, but I feel like we talked about that plenty with MDG number 2. So while it's important that we do understand the goal and the target of the third Millennium Development Goal, what we're going to do is we're going to focus more on this idea of gender inequality and what's called the global gender gap. The problem is worldwide, men and women are not equal, and that's in so many different ways. Basic treatment, job opportunities, educational opportunities, income, access to resources, etc. So the first thing we did, I should say that if you click over here, I put a link for this WebQuest in the calendar. If you click on task, there's a, I'll open it in a new tab so you can see it. There's a PDF for you to fill out. We did not nearly get to all of this. We did the front page, and really that's it. On the second page, we discussed this piece here on the Gambia, and then that was it. So I'm not going to keep referring back to this. Actually, I may, but I'm just going to give you a general idea of what we discussed. So the first piece, if you click on process, it takes you to all of the different links that you need. First, we looked at this United Nations Population Fund. And what we saw is that there's a number of key issues related to gender inequality. So what these are, number one, reproductive health. When women are pregnant or when they're giving birth, there are a lot of dangers and risks involved. Now, I've sort of mentioned this in the past, but we live in a country where we have access to prenatal vitamins, the vitamins you should be taking when you're pregnant, and we have good doctors, and we do things like ultrasounds and blood work to make sure that the pregnancy is going well. And then when we are in childbirth, we have good doctors and clean facilities and all of the tools that we need. So the problem is that in countries that are still developing countries, we see a lot of maternal deaths, which you're going to see as another Millennium Development Goal. Actually, I think they say that 99% of maternal deaths happen in these developing countries for all of the reasons that I just listed. Now, I'm going to take this a step farther, and I'm going to add, let's see if my little writing tool works. I'm going to add family planning to this. It does work. It's not very neat, but it works. Family planning. Another issue that we see is that women don't always have any control over the planning of their family. They're married at a young age. Sometimes they're not married to who they want to get married to, and they don't always have a say in when they start having children or how many children they're going to have. So I think that that's a piece of this too, just giving women rights in the planning of their family. The next piece is called stewardship of natural resources. Basically what we're talking about here is women, maybe you've heard this saying, the woman's place is in the home. Now, in our world, that seems like a very outdated notion. However, in some parts of the world, that's still a truth, that still exists. And that's okay, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. But think about a woman in that situation. It's her job to take care of the home. She has to get the food, the water, the fuel, and she's in charge of the family's nutrition and diet and health. So if that's her role, we need to give her what she needs to do that successfully. In some places, if it's her job to access the food or to retrieve the food, sometimes there's no food available to get. Or for water, they have to walk miles and miles and miles to get water. Sometimes it's not clean and drinkable, or sometimes you wait in line and then it runs out. So there's issues there. What else did I want to say with this? Oh, just that we need to teach nutrition and diet, because if they're in charge of keeping the family healthy, they need to know how to keep the family healthy, and they need the means to do so. The next three we've kind of talked about. In terms of economic empowerment, there's more women than men in poverty. They need jobs, they need fair wages. Educational empowerment, we talked about this for the past few days. More women need to be going to school. And then political empowerment, we'll look at this in a few minutes, but we need more women in politics. What we find is that when a woman is in politics, usually that country is a little more progressive, I guess you could say. They tend to honor equality a little bit more, and they tend to have better democracies, or a better democratic system, I should say. So anyway, we looked at these and we discussed which were the most important and why. All right, so to the next piece of our WebQuest, we looked at this visualization. I absolutely love this visualization. I wish I would have left it open though, so it didn't have to load now. What you can do with this program, this is called Datapult. There's also MindMapper and a couple others similar. But what you can do is you can plug in just about any data set you want. Cases of HIV and AIDS, global climate, access to education, population growth. They have so many options. But when you do this, let me just hit play so it'll load. It will show you the change in data over time. So this data visualization is going to show us the countries that adopted equality laws over time. So purple means that there are no gender equality laws, white means no data, and red means that they have adopted gender equality laws. So notice that it started in 1867. We watched it twice and we made some general observations. I'll just talk you through it. Basically, I'll talk you through what we discussed in class. So it starts in 1867. The first to pop up right away is the United States. Now, I don't know how accurate that, it's accurate, but it wasn't until the 20s that women could vote, 50s and 60s. Oh, you see some popping up in Europe now. 50s and 60s that women started joining the workforce. So Russia popped up. That surprised a lot of people that they popped up so soon. And then China soon after that. And it's not until, there's two in South America, it's not until like the late 1980s, 1990s, up to 2011 that we see other countries come up to speed. So the kids were really interested in this. You see in Africa, there's still a lot of countries that have not adopted laws. And some things that surprised people. This region right here, let's see. This region right here, people were surprised to see that there were no laws. And also this area of Chile, to have no laws regarding gender equality. Now, to be fair, that does not mean that women are not treated equally in these places. There are just no laws in place. And chances are that with those laws in place, women are being treated a little bit more fairly. But still an interesting visualization nonetheless. All right. The next thing that we looked at was this infographic. Oh, good. I still have it open. Just scroll back up to the top. And just to go through it real quickly, we looked at these gray bubbles to help us fill in, where did that form go? Here it is. This table down here at the bottom of your form, it mentions 4 global goals: reducing poverty, reducing poverty, improving global health, improving agriculture, and getting more women involved in politics. So we just looked for items that would help meet these goals. So looking at this infographic, we see here that if we had adequate health care, a skilled birth attendant, you could just call that maternal health, and emergency care, we could improve global health. Again, in our country, we have very good health facilities. If we have an emergency, we even have a special car that comes and picks us up and fights through traffic to get you to a clean facility with special trained medical people to help you. In some places, that's not the case. All right, so that could obviously help with global health. Next, I thought this was pretty interesting. When 10% more girls go to school, a country's GDP increases by 3%. Now, just to remind you, a GDP, and this we wrote under the reducing poverty column. Where was it? Right here, to reduce poverty. We said that if more girls go to school, the GDP increases. Because what that means is when you have a GDP, a gross domestic product, that's the total value of your country that year. So of all the goods and services that your country produced. So I'm a teacher. I produce a service, I guess you could, or I provide a service. People who collect garbage men, they provide a service. Waitresses, waiters, businessmen and women, we all provide a type of service or good. People who build cars, or people who farm, or I don't know, builds the little caps for your pens. All of these are products that contribute to your country's GDP. So if more girls go to school, they will get jobs and they will be able to contribute to that GDP. All right, what do we have next? We went down to, oh, here. We've talked about this before, but in terms of agriculture, if you give women the same amount of land as men, then you will see an increase about 10% in your crop yields. And when we say crop yields, maybe I haven't been clear about this in the past, but that's how much crops you are producing. So if you give them land, we'll get more crops. No brainer. And then finally, I love this one. If you look around the world, women comprise only 18.9% of the world's legislators. So if you look at all of the different governments and the seats available for politicians, only 18.9% of those are held by women. So I like what they say here. Where women's share of seats in political bodies is greater than 30%, so where women make up more than 30% of a political body, those countries are more inclusive, egalitarian or equal, and democratic. They have a more effective democratic system. Now, that's not to say, I personally don't think that that's to say that a woman in those political bodies makes the country more equal and democratic. I think that means that if a country has women in those positions, then they most likely already are a country that values equality and democracy. So, good points. All right, then we watched this short video. It's called The Girl Effect. And you don't really get much more out of it than we've already been discussing, but the video is very well done and it sends a good message. So I'll just play that for you real quickly. I really like that video. Again, it doesn't really teach us much more than we've already been talking about, but I think it's well done and it does a great job of capturing what we've been saying. All right, one more thing that I want to show you. This is an example of what one girl is doing. She's a Peace Corps volunteer, and it shows what she's doing in the Gambia to help women who are struggling with some unequal opportunities down there. Not down there, over there, I guess, in Africa. So I'm going to play this for you now, and as you watch it, it's just a picture slideshow with her narrating it. But as you watch it, what I'd like you to do is pick out what are the challenges that women face in the Gambia and what is being done to help? What are they doing to help themselves? What are people like Adrian doing to help them? All right, so let's see if we can get this to play. Last period we had a little trouble.
Hi, I'm Adrian.
There we go.
I'm currently serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in the West African nation of the Gambia. Most of the land here is dry and sparsely forested. I live on the coast, however, where the River Gambia meets the ocean, creating a unique habitat and beautiful green scenery. Family, food, religion, and dancing are the most important parts of Gambian living. Most people live off the land, either farming or fishing. Traditionally, men are fishermen and farmers. Women are gardeners and gatherers, collecting things like snails, oysters, and clams to eat or sell. As a Peace Corps volunteer, I work with female oyster harvesters through an organization called the Tri-Oyster Women's Association. The Wolof language equivalent to tri literally means the exhaustion one feels after working extremely hard at any job, hoping one day for some kind of reprieve or benefit. Tri has brought together over 500 oyster harvesters from 15 communities, most of which harvest in Pandy National Park, one of the Gambia's few national parks. Oysters are harvested from the root systems of the mangrove, a highly threatened habitat. To a mangrove, over-harvesting of oysters is like going off the trail in a national park, despite the "please stay on the trail" signs. The more one decimates the mangroves, the smaller the oyster habitat will be, and the fewer oysters there will be to harvest. Here, you can see the oysters attached to the roots of the mangrove tree.
Stephanie Rennan here, please call 1005. Stephanie, please dial 1005.
Oyster beds are extremely sharp and a risky place for any person who lacks proper shoes and gloves. Many of the women cannot swim and do not own boats or life jackets, gloves, or boots. Harvesting oysters offers only a few months of work and fewer if you are harvesting responsibly. Particularly for single mothers, this can result in extreme financial hardship. Saving money is hard, even if you have money to save and a safe place to keep it. For women who have neither, saving is impossible. Add 8 children to the equation, their clothes, food, and medical bills, and paying for their schooling, uniforms, books, and transportation becomes unheard of. Now, with Tri's help, the oyster women are gaining skills in business and money management. Over 300 women received lots of money-saving boxes and training to start their own small enterprises. The program has been extremely successful. Women have saved thousands of Iraqis, equivalent to hundreds of US dollars, and are no longer exclusively dependent on oyster harvesting. They are confident in themselves and their ability to provide for their families. Our hope is that the women will stay debt-free and send their children to school. Tri also offers classes for the daughters of the oyster harvesters who were forced to drop out of school because their mothers couldn't afford the fees. They learn profitable skills like cooking, sewing, and computer literacy so that they may start their own small businesses in the future. The girls create crafts and soaps to sell, as well as develop oyster products for a wider market. Previously, oysters sold by the cup on the side of the road only reached a very small population. Wealthier Gambians with cars driving by a certain area who didn't mind an unprocessed, unpackaged product. Now, we are processing the oysters, cleaning and packaging them safely, and selling to a much wider audience. By the next tourist season, we hope to provide the hotels, restaurants, and supermarkets with our clean, safe, packaged oysters. Our research shows that the water quality of our wetlands is clean enough to eventually ship raw oysters to the United States and Europe. This would be a huge economic success for both Tri women and the Gambia as a whole, considering the country currently imports much more than it exports. It would also be an environmental success. Only oysters that are large enough and responsibly harvested are desirable on the world market. During the rainy season, the off-season for oyster harvesting, we will be focusing on mangrove restoration, replenishing the habitat with new seedlings, and protecting the natural beauty of the Gambia. I have great faith in the future of TRI, and I feel fortunate to have the chance to be a part of its growth. These are incredible women who believe more than anything in their own self-empowerment through a strong community effort. Despite all the challenges they face, together they are on their way to a better future.
All right. Sorry about all the distractions there. I didn't want to stop the video midpoint, but you might have heard the announcement and then somebody came in the door. But that's okay. Hopefully it wasn't too distracting for you. I think I was typing. I'm not sure if you heard that. But hopefully what you got out of that is that the challenge here is that women are oyster harvesters. The men are farming and doing other things, but the women have this very short oyster season where they can harvest oysters. This is a very dangerous job as it's very sharp in the waters, and they don't have the proper tools to do this. Also, the unprocessed oysters that they were selling were only selling to people who were a little wealthier that would happen to drive by where they were being sold, and they would sell them to those people. But now, thanks to the helps of the Peace Corps, they're getting the tools that they need. They have, they're processing them and packaging them in such a way so that they can sell them to more people, and they could possibly even ship them overseas to the U.S. and Europe. They're learning ways to save money because in the past they were unable to save money and therefore they couldn't take care of their families or send their kids to school. And they're learning how to make money when it isn't oyster harvesting season through things like making crafts or harvesting or what did they say, working with the mangroves. So good things are happening in the Gambia. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. I'm going to link this WebQuest and everything else in the calendar, which I guess you would see if you already accessed this link. And don't forget that geography is due tomorrow. We're actually going to meet in the library for class. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.